Welcome to The Next Level. I'm your host, Kyla Cullinane. Every day, people across the country go after the American dream, many of them by starting their own businesses. And the people of the Texas Panhandle are no exception. During this show, we're going to introduce you to business owners from right here in the Panhandle. These are your friends, family, neighbors who have all faced adversity and overcome. We'll tell you their secrets to success and give you the tools to thrive in today's business climate. Let's take a look inside the Donut Stop.
If I'm in town, I'm at work every day.
For 35 years, Donut Stop owner Rose Martha Cates has lived and breathed donuts. Along with her husband Jim, Rose Martha owns and operates 7 Donut Stop locations in Amarillo and Canyon. They have 88 employees and a payroll of more than $1 million.
Thank God in Amarillo, we have been successful.
But that success was not always easy. Originally from Mexico City, Cates moved to Amarillo when she was 7 years old. She met and married her high school sweetheart, Jim, who was drafted into the Vietnam War. When he returned, they looked for a business opportunity.
His mom had worked at Southern Made Donuts that were in Woodland Village at the time, and she said, why don't we open up a donut store? And I thought, I was 21, and I thought how fun that would be.
She had no business training, no experience making donuts, and no money.
I was like Scarlett O'Hara and said, I don't care, I'll never be poor again. So he and I both worked 2 jobs, and we lived on his salary, and I saved all my money.
In 1 year, they saved $2,500.
We tried not to get into too much debt at all, because my grandfather, being from the old thinking, he didn't believe in even borrowing from a bank. He died with 0 credit. He paid cash for everything. And so he always instilled in me that, you know, you have to work.
They did try to get a loan, but even with their $2,500, only one bank decided that they were worth the risk. Their current banker, Dennis Fox, says too often novice and even experienced entrepreneurs don't have a thorough business plan.
It's real hard to make a business decision without some kind of number for the banker to say, what are your profit margins? What's your gross sales? What kind of money do you think you're going to make? What are your expenses? What are the other assets you need to buy? What kind of payments can you stand? And my job as a banker also is not to get them so far in debt that they can't get out.
Fox says you need capital and a steady flow of cash.
You got to have a bank loan, and the more you grow and the longer you delay the cash cycle getting your money back, you actually run out of cash. And that's the biggest killer for most businesses, the cash cycle.
Fox says by starting out small and expanding only as they received new business, the Cates set themselves up well.
We rented a building at 34th and Georgia, which was an old service station. We did all the remodeling ourselves, and we opened on August 17th, 1974.
For the first 3 years, the Cates did not take a salary from their business. They relied on Jim's salary as a brick salesman.
When you're young, the world just seems so bright. We just didn't worry so much about finances. We grew up at a time when you could live on love.
Jim and Rose Martha typically worked from 3:30 in the morning until 6 at night. They had some help from Jim's mother, but they made a conscious decision to do as much as they could by themselves. Rose Martha encourages other entrepreneurs to do the same.
I would advise them not to hire too many employees and try to run the business themselves. That's one big mistake I think a lot of people do, is that their payroll is just too high.
They also kept their donut prices low and maintained their costs by using local suppliers. They also realized the value of owning land. They bought property across Amarillo, which could be leased to other business owners or could become new Donut Stop locations.
Well, my husband says he's always bored if he doesn't have a project going on. He likes one end, the real estate and the building, and I like running the stores. It was a successful recipe for running the Donut Stop, but could it withstand national competition? In 2002, the national chain Krispy Kreme announced that it would open a store in Amarillo in November.
I think that most people thought, oh, Donut Stop is really going to be in trouble.
West Texas A&M business dean Dr. Neil Terry says it was a defining moment for the Donut Stop.
Everywhere that you would end up going, you would see information on Krispy Kreme. And even in this market, they had penetrated some through different types of church-based activities where at local churches they would end up selling Krispy Kreme donuts on the weekend as a fundraising activity. So Krispy Kreme at that time was a little bit of a national phenomenon. On top of that, Krispy Kreme coming in, you also had a big movement towards lower calorie and lower sugar diets. So you would think that the combination of this big national firm coming in, combined with some of the different and dietary changes in the United States at that point in time, really put Donut Stop in a very difficult position.
The buzz was not good for the Donut Stop.
It never was easy. You know, a lot of rocky roads, lots of tough competition, bankers saying no, downturns in the economy.
Not to mention the loss of long-term partnerships. For 15 years, the Donut Stop had supplied Toot and Totem with donuts. According to an Amarillo Globe article, Toot and Totem dropped the Donut Stop because their donuts didn't have preservatives and therefore could not stay fresh long enough for their customers. As that relationship ended, another partnership for the Donut Stop developed.
To me, I was naturally attracted to the Donut Stop right then.
Roasters Coffee and Tea joined forces with the Donut Stop to supply their coffee. At the time, Roasters was also battling a national chain, Starbucks.
When you're a business owner, it's almost, I say there's about 12% of the population in anything in life who love to see people fail. And I think that 12% was the thing that made me thrive, and I know that made Rose and Jim thrive. I mean, that's exactly what I did. I mean, instead of getting in my little shell and hiding from the world and doing my same old thing, I opened up a new store. And that's exactly what Rose and Jim did. You know what? Okay, sort of like the old Italian way. Come, bring it on.
Even now, Cates refuses to say much about her naysayers, but she admits that she was nervous. That's when she relied on her partner.
My husband was really the rock. He was extra confident. He knew.
He traveled across the country to find out how other local donut chains competed against Krispy Kreme's. Dean Terry says this research revealed some of the Donut Stop's advantages.
Donut Stop was in a position where they were a speedboat and they could turn and adjust as needed, whether it be based on pricing, coming up with some type of special product, some type of special Christmas twist that they wanted to end up selling. They had the ability to end up doing all those type of things, where Krispy Kreme was in a situation that they sold the glazed donut and it was at that price, and there's very little change that they could end up doing, especially at that time.
In addition to making a variety of donuts and lowering prices, the Donut Stop hired an advertising firm, Johansson and Associates. It was the first time the Donut Stop had ever done this.
They were quite concerned that they were going to kind of be left by the wayside because there was so much hype on and appeal on this national chain that was getting national attention.
Johansson decided the best approach was to engage in target marketing.
It's very important to be selective in what you and to choose carefully what you're going to market to your ultimate end user of your product, so that they have an easier time understanding, well, what's so good about you compared to a national chain.
Billboards popped up featuring donut options that only the Donut Stop could do: the cherry donut, the twist, donut holes, and the cinnamon roll.
Cherry baby.
With a very conservative budget, the Donut Stop used 10-second spots instead of 30-second TV ads. It's a less expensive option and one that Johansson recommended for the Donut Stop.
In this day and age, it takes time for people to be able to find you and to hear you. And that means frequency, and that means dollars to be able to have enough in the media so that they can see and hear you. And so if your budget's very limited, start with one medium, be seen on that, and then expand.
The community responded by supporting the local Donut Stop.
The thing that I came away from that as the most interesting is it was such a big event before it happened. And once Krispy Kreme actually came in, they were not a major player in this market at all. Even within 2 months of starting, Krispy Kreme was already had layoffs of some people they had hired for their original staff. So in a way, the Donut Stop and Krispy Kreme competition is not it's not that great of a battle in the end. It was one of those things where the little guy really did bring down the big guy pretty fast. It's almost amazing how fast it ended up happening.
Terry says the Donut Stop's aggressive pricing and advertising helped save the local business. But he also thinks customer loyalty played a factor.
And certainly in the southwestern part of the United States, there is a little bit more sense of community. You have a high percent of the population that end up going to church. You have friendlier neighbors. You have people that you've probably known for many years. It's much more likely to end up being the case in this part of the country and in a mid-sized city over a real big city, East Coast or West Coast. I think those conditions end up making it much more likely that a local firm like a Donut Stop that's well established, they're going to find more success in this community than a national chain like Krispy Kreme.
The Kates are very active in the community. They have a $10,000 nonprofit budget, and they've won numerous awards from charities. Johansson says being local does matter, but it's not enough to make your business a success.
A lot of home-owned businesses feel like, well, if the community knows that I'm a home-owned business, they should continue to do business with me because I'm a home-owned business. But that's really a mistake, because even though that's a benefit to the community, you have to have what's in it for the consumer.
Kate says in the service industry, the customer comes first, but the employees are a close second. Maintaining good employees is typically challenging in her line of work.
Either people love the hours or they don't like the hours. And now our turnover is pretty good for fast food. It's about 15 to 20%, which is really excellent. And having lived in Mexico, I speak Spanish, and that always helps when, you know, a lot of our workers are Hispanic, and it's good that you can speak their language.
The employees and the customers have rewarded the Donut Stop with their loyalty. For the last 8 years, the Donut Stop has won the best donuts in Amarillo. Fueled by their success, the Kates are planning to remodel some of their older stores. Staying true to their roots, they have hired their son to design the new building. Kate says by avoiding outside partners and investors, she and her husband have created their own destiny. She believes that with so much national competition, it is much more difficult to start a true mom-and-pop business these days, but she encourages others to try. She says too often, potential entrepreneurs get stuck in analysis.
I just think we were too young and too dumb to even worry about that. And maybe people do worry too much about things like that. Sometimes I just tell them, dive in. Meet a need that's not being met. And just go for it.
That's how they tackled the Krispy Kreme competition, with research, advertising, and tenacity. Dean Terry says it's back to the basics.
I do think that the example of the Donut Stop shows how a small entrepreneur with a lot of experience in the region can go through and compete. They focused on things like, what are we going to do with pricing? What are we going to do about location issues? What are we going to do about our advertising? Is there some way we can differentiate our product? They focus on fundamentals of how they are different than the new arrival and use those to their advantage. I think this is what all entrepreneurs have to do whenever you face the situation of this huge national chain coming into your local market.